The story of how Thomas the Tank Engine got his current basis is an interesting one. What if I was to tell you that Thomas wasn't always based on an E2 class with extended side tanks? Without further ado, let's dive in. Enjoy. In 1942, Wilbert Awdry handcrafted a wooden toy train for his son, Christopher Awdry. The toy was made from a piece of broomstick. The appearance of it vaguely resembled a J50 tank engine. You're probably thinking that the NW stood for Northwestern, associating it with the Northwestern Railway, a fictional location, but that's not true. However, it would be later associated with it. The NW stood for Nowhere. Wilbert Awdry painted a number 1 on the toy as he was very inexperienced at painting, and the number 1 was the easiest option to paint. Christopher adored his new toy, and he made the decision to name it, say it with me now, Thomas the Tank Engine. After being encouraged to write another book following the 3 railway engines, he made the decision to focus the book on the toy, Thomas the Tank Engine, he made for his son. And the character's name would be the name of the book. In November 1945, Wilbert paid illustrator Reginald to illustrate the book Thomas the Tank Engine. Wilbert gave sketches of Thomas as a J50 to help guide Reginald with the illustrations. However, despite all that, Reginald, because he was a southern man, he made the choice to base Thomas off an LB and SCR E2 class 060 with extended side tanks. More specifically, a London, Brighton and South Coast Railway tank engine. So when the illustrations in April 1946 were complete, Thomas did not look anything like this, but looked like this. So when the book was published on the 14th of September 1946, this is what we got. Now, as much as I do like the look of Thomas as an E2 in the earlier illustrations, the decision from Reginald to go against Wilbert's wishes and make Thomas an E2 is utterly selfish. I mean, Wilbert paid Reginald, gave him sketches of how he wanted Thomas to look like and put trust in him to illustrate the book. But no, because he was southern, he thought, I'm gonna base him off an E2 instead. What's that, some of you say?
Ah, but he was a southern man, so it makes perfect sense why he chose to base Thomas off an E2 instead.
No, Reginald Payne wasn't paid to illustrate Thomas as an E2 class. There was a reason as to why Wilbert Awdry sent sketches of Thomas as a J50 over to him. There's no excuses, it's just selfish. Furthermore, what was the point of going against what Wilbert wanted if Reginald Payne wasn't even consistent with his own drawings?
What?
When Wilbert Awdry found out about the basis change, understandably so, was frustrated about it. However, once he found out that Reginald Payne had used an engine that actually existed for Thomas's new basis, he ended up becoming content with it. On the 20th of December 1947, Reginald Payne passed away. This meant that a new illustrator for the railway series had to be found. This is where Reginald Dalby comes in. He came in to be the next illustrator in 1948. That year, he illustrated the book James the Red Engine. The following year, Wilbert Awdry made Reginald Dalby re-illustrate the first 2 books. This was done so improvements to the illustrations could be made and so they were consistent to Reginald Dalby's style. This may have also been done due to the fact that Wilbert Awdry was still likely somewhat unhappy with Reginald Payne's illustrations. The illustrations from the first book, The 3 Railway Engines, went from this to this. And the second book, Thomas the Tank Engine, Thomas went from this to this. When being tasked with re-illustrating that book, Wilbert Awdry made Dalby take away and change some of Thomas's features that resemble an E2. The extra cab window was now a consistent thing, most of the time. The front of his running board was raised and the LBSCR styled smokebox saddle was removed. Sometimes. Seriously, why wasn't he consistent with that? And that, my friends, is how we got the look of Thomas the Tank Engine we know today. This style of him was also carried over into the TV series that came out in the 1980s. Jumping back to the books, however, Thomas would go through one last change in regards to how much he resembles his basis. In the Railway series, the story Thomas Comes to Breakfast, where a careless cleaner causes Thomas to crash into a house, written in 1961, was written so Thomas's running board could be changed to a flat one. This was because the real E2 class tank engines had dips at the front and back of their running boards, while Thomas only contained the front dip. This caused inconsistencies between illustrations. To Audrey, this meant that his front and rear buffer beam were at different heights. This bothered Audrey, so he wrote the book Branch Line Engines, where the events of Thomas Comes to Breakfast set everything up for the rest of the book. When Thomas came back from being rebuilt in the final story of that same book, he now contains the flat running board, and this remained a thing all the way to the end of the Railway series. Thomas now only vaguely resembles an E2. In the TV series, following the crash in Thomas Comes to Breakfast, he keeps the front dip in his running board and resembles more of an E2 on screen compared to the books because of that. Thanks for watching.